Thank you, all of you, for being here, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at this early hour of the morning, at the start of what I know will be an interesting and no doubt challenging couple of days. The gathering has quickly become one of the highlights on the calendar of Civic Scotland, and I know that you'll all be up for some good discussions over the course of it. So it is really great to be here. And of course, we're here today as the SCVO publish findings that give an indication, in my view not a very surprising indication, but nevertheless an important one, of how highly valued the third sector is here in Scotland, not just by government, though I want to make very clear that the third sector is highly valued by government, but it's also highly valued by the wider public in Scotland. And the SCVO's findings show widespread support for charities and high levels of public confidence. And given what we see perhaps expressed sometimes in some other parts of the UK, I think that is a very positive context in which the gathering is opening today. Of course, it's really important over the months and the years to come that that public confidence is maintained and increased. And I certainly very much welcome the fact that the fundraising review, which we've already been discussing backstage this morning, is such an important feature of this year's programme. I think it's in the best interests of everybody, the government, the third sector, and of course the wider public, that charity fundraising methods do protect rather than undermine public trust. And that's why the government looks forward to seeing the outcome of the review when it's published. We hope that any recommendations for action can be implemented quickly, though I think it's important that any recommendations do what I've just said, protect, not undermine confidence in the sector, which is, as I've already indicated, a sector that I think does have significant levels of public support in Scotland. Now, the main message I want to take the opportunity to get across in my opening remarks this morning is, at its heart, a very simple one. The third sector is, I think it always has been, and it will continue to be, a vital social partner for the Scottish Government. We share a common cause of creating a fairer and wealthier, more equal country, where people across the country have a real say and a meaningful say in the big issues that directly affect their day-to-day lives. And to give just one example of the Scottish Government's partnership with SCVO, we're working together on our Open Government Partnership Action Plan. That plan, which I know is being discussed here later on today and which will be published in the summer, sets out how the Scottish Government intends to involve people in the reform of public services and how we will seek to improve access to information and data. For example, it will include proposals on how we report on Scotland's progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. SCVO were, without a shadow of a doubt, obvious partners for us in this work, which is one of the ways, of course, in which we're seeking to bring government closer to people across Scotland. And SCVO was an obvious partner because local third sector organisations are always at the heart of any successful attempts to work with local communities. I've said previously that I want the Scottish Government that I'm privileged to lead to be open and accessible. I am passionate in the belief that we should, even now, some months, more than a year after it, take the enthusiasm and the engagement that was unleashed in the referendum campaign on both sides of that debate and use that to address the key social and economic challenges that we face today and in the future. And there's no doubt that the third sector is an essential partner as we work to achieve that. Third sector, as many of you will know from your direct experience, has of course also more recently played a significant role in our Fairer Scotland consultation. And I think that ability of the third sector to contribute meaningfully, openly, sometimes critically, is absolutely vital. And that's why one of the things I want to stress this morning, given recent developments at Westminster, is that we don't just want the third sector to help other people to contribute to the big discussions that shape our country. We want you, as third sector organisations, to to be free to make your own views known as well. We know, and I know from experience, that you won't always agree with the Scottish Government, but actually, and this is not always easy for politicians, it's often when you don't agree with us that it's most important that you get the opportunity to make your views known and your voice heard. And that's why we've got deep concerns about the anti-advocacy clause proposed by the UK Government and the impact a clause like that would have on third sector organisations receiving UK Government funding. And I want to confirm today and stress this very strongly, that we do not intend to add this kind of clause to any Scottish Government grant letters. We value you as partners, we value you as friends. We recognise that at times that will be as critical friends, and I don't ever want to see you or the organisations you represent written off as irksome protesters. Your contribution to how we develop policy in Scotland is vital to us, and I believe strongly that your views should be sought and listened to and not silenced in any way. Now, a major reason for that, as I mentioned earlier, is the expertise that you have. You're at the heart of day-to-day efforts to create the fairer and more prosperous country that we all want to see. So whether it's the success of our social enterprise sector, where Scotland is increasingly seen as an international leader, or the efforts of tens of thousands of charities, service providers and voluntary organisations, your innovation, your commitment and your expertise make a massive difference to literally hundreds of thousands of people each and every year. And of course, your work has been especially important in recent years and will continue to be so as we have confronted the consequences of austerity. Through food banks, skills training, care provision, mutual support groups, rehabilitation projects and many, many other programmes, you provide direct support and assistance to people who need it most. The Scottish Government is investing every year at the moment more than £100 million to try to mitigate the effects of UK welfare cuts. We're also making important investments in affordable housing and childcare, which of course will make a significant impact in tackling intergenerational poverty. But we know that we can't work alone. We're dependent on our partnership with the private sector, with the wider public sector, and of course with the third sector. And one good example of that is SCVO's Community Jobs Fund. That fund has now given more than 6,000 young people an opportunity for employment that they might not otherwise have had. In its most recent evaluation, 93% of employers were positive about the programme, and the proportion of young people entering a positive destination from that programme was almost 70%. Now that's impressive in and of itself, but it's particularly impressive when we consider that many of the places on the Community Jobs programme are reserved for groups of young people who find it particularly difficult to enter the workplace. So I'm pleased to confirm today that we're going to be investing a further £6.1 million in Community Jobs Scotland to provide training for up to 700 more young people. Most of these places will be filled by people who currently find it harder to get jobs, carers, people who are leaving care, people with disabilities, people leaving military service and people who have convictions. And I think the success of this programme and our continued commitment to it is a further example of the role that the third sector can play in promoting opportunities and also tackling the inequalities that still exist in our country. We're also considering right now how employability services will work when they are devolved to Scotland, hopefully when we get a fiscal framework agreement reached in the coming days. But as we decide and determine how we want to develop employability services here, there's no doubt in my mind that the ethos of Community Jobs Scotland could almost serve as a model for the principles we want to adopt. We want to, in everything we do, as social security and welfare and employability powers are devolved, in everything we do, we want to respect people's dignity, value the potential they have as human beings and encourage their aspirations and ambitions. Because we know by doing that and providing the practical support that help people to fulfil their potential, that's the best way of achieving a fairer society and tackling inequality. I want to touch also briefly this morning on public services and in particular integration of health and social care, something that I know will be of great relevance to many of you, because the third sector is a crucial part and partner in our work to transform public services. The integration of health and social care is, in my view, the biggest and probably the most important change to health and care in Scotland since the NHS was created in 1948. For integration to be a success, and it has to be a success, health and care services need to work ever more closely with the third sector, not as an add-on, but they need to work with you as equal partners in the process of transformation. Because many of the services you provide make a huge difference to people's well-being, to their health and their happiness. And that's one reason, although it's only one reason, why as part of this process of the integration of health and social care, we are committed to paying the living wage to all care workers. And we're determined to see that implemented by October of this year. Paying the living wage, in my view, is the right thing to do anyway for any group of workers in any sector of the economy. But the principles at stake in the care sector are especially important. There are 40,000 carers in the third and independent sectors at present, and each and every one of these carers is essential to the quality of life, to the dignity and to the independence of hundreds of thousands of people. So paying the living wage is just one way, but a vitally important way of demonstrating that we value their expertise, their compassion and their commitment. And that, I hope, is also an example of the fact that in everything you do as the third sector, the Scottish Government will seek to recognise the value of that work, whether it's work in influencing policy, empowering communities, providing help, support, advice, opportunities for people across the country. The strength and the value of the work that you do is recognised. We won't, as I said earlier on, always agree. I hope we will agree more often than we disagree. But of course, it is in the nature of democracy that there will be differences of opinion. I hope we can air those openly and honestly and find ways of working together. It is also inescapable right now that we live in difficult times financially. That has an impact on the work we do as government, and it has an impact on the work each and every one of you does across the country. But my commitment to you today is that we will continue to work with you, not against you, but with you to face up to these challenges, to hear and listen to and respond to your views, to support your work and involve you closely and centrally in policy delivery and implementation. I understand that the 45,000 organisations that you represent make a massive difference to the well-being of communities across Scotland. And in doing that, you're playing a major part in helping to achieve our common cause, a fairer and more prosperous country. Without the work that you do, we as government couldn't fulfil our ambitions. So thank you again for being here, for listening to me. I look forward to taking your questions, but above all else, on behalf of the government, thank you and your colleagues for all the work that you do. Thank you very much.